Good evening. So we've been covering a lot of the Carenado aircraft just recently, and a few people who are not familiar with my YouTube channel may be not aware that I owned the Cessna 337 Skymaster all along. Recorded some videos back when it first came out, so I thought we'd return to it and go have a play with it. So we are sat here on the ground. I'll go and switch over to Little Nav Map to show you where we are. We're at Brookings State, which is, if we zoom out to give you your bearings of where we are, we're up in the top end of California basically, and we are going to fly from Brookings State over to Ward, then to Illinois Valley, and down to Happy Camp, which I just thought looked like a great place. So it's a fairly random route, but just to give the aircraft a chance to stretch its legs and to play with some navigation along the way. Okay, so we're going to jump inside the Skymaster. If you've never seen it before, I guess we'll look outside first. It's kind of unique in that it's got a pull propeller and a push propeller. So I think they were used during Vietnam. It may have been called a different name than Skymaster back then, the military version of it. But we'll go and have a look around it as well while we're here. So it's modelled really nicely. So you can see it's got kind of this mid-80s kind of look to the fascia, which is really cool. It's kind of, I remember cars having this kind of finish. So Carenado are very, very good at this, aren't they? At getting the kind of the texture modelling, or material modelling, I should say. Okay, so I have set the throttles already before I got into the aircraft, so I should have independent control of the front and rear engines. I should have good control of the yoke. I've got the pedals as well, and that's basically all we need. We've got control of the flap lever over there. It doesn't have air brakes, so we don't need to worry about that, or spoilers. Okay, let's see if I can remember how to get this thing fired up then. So first things first, we turn the battery on. I'm going to go and modify the sound. I turned it up a little bit earlier. I think this thing's pretty noisy. Okay, so we've got the battery on. First thing we're going to do is look for the fuel cutoff levers, and I can't remember where they are in this thing. So we're going to, oh, there they are. I did remember. So off, takeoff, and fuel off, rear engine, flight only, level only, takeoff and landing left, takeoff and landing right. There we go. Level flight only. So we'll leave them where they are. Carenado seem to, kind of dumb things down a little bit, or simplify is a better way of putting it. So we'll put the mixture levers all the way forwards. And we have some switches on this side. There's the avionics master switch. I'm starting to remember now where things are. We put the beacon light on before we start the engine. Obviously in the real world we would then lean out and shout clear before we turn the engine over, but we'll do it now. Okay, so I'm not sure if there's an order you're supposed to do this in. We're going to go front engine first. So, and then the switch falls back to both on the magnetos, which is good. And now we'll go for the rear engine. You'll see the gauges light up, which is good. So engines are running and they're both on tick over. If we go and look outside, just have a look at them. Let's go and open up the front engine first. We're on the parking brake, so hopefully the plane won't start moving. So that's the front engine. Let's try the rear one then. What about both together? What sort of racket is it going to make? Okay, that cleared its throat, didn't it? Okay, so let's go and turn some more lights on now. Now we're getting ready to go. Taxi light. Did the taxi switch work? Yes, it did. We don't need to worry about icing. It's a lovely day in Northern California. We'll go and turn the alternators on now. We didn't need the fuel pumps to get the engines running. From memory, you do need to worry a little bit in this about carb heat, but we'll worry about it as and when we need to. I'm just looking. I can't remember where the carb heat levers are. Are there any in it? Maybe I'm thinking of a different aircraft. Oh, it's over here. But we'll see how we get on. So we can turn on... Oh, we haven't turned the avionics on yet. Sorry. There we go. Avionics master switch. So the GPS comes up, and we can now turn on this Bendix King weather radar. I think it is. Obviously there's no weather for it to see. It's absolutely, well, there's a little bits of spotty cloud, but no storms or rain to worry about at all, really. Okay, wait for the GPS to boot up. While we're waiting for that, we'll go and have a look at our route then. So from KBOC to 009 is the first part of the route. So if we zoom in on this, there we go. Enter, enter, wait for it to boot up. So it does have an autopilot. You won't find an autopilot engage button though. I think it's on the stick. On the yoke, which toggles it. So I'll have to use the keyboard to do that. I don't think I have a button set up for it. Obviously it's got the mode selector for the autopilot here. The ADF is over there, and so is the transponder. Should we go and turn the transponder on? Okay, so GPS has fired up. Let's go and look in the flight plan. So KBOC was our first waypoint. Brookings State, perfect. Then over to Ward, which is 009. So click on the keyboard. 009. Ward, perfect. And then Illinois Valley, 3S4. 3S4. Enter. And the last one is Happy Camp 36S. So 36S Happy Camp. Press enter, and that's the flight plan done. Press program. There we go. Sorry for the flight plan button, and now we can see it mapped out for us. We're going to leave it on GPS mode. There aren't many radio navigation beacons around. What we will do is go and have a quick look though at the wind and the runway. So we're wanting to take off runway 30, so we'll turn left and taxi down to 30. The actual runway heading is 309 degrees. So we're going to go and set the heading bug before we get going to 309. So it's just over here. Whoops, too far. Okay, that's a bit of an interesting clipping issue there, isn't there? We'll set the course as well, even though we're not really going to use it in its intended purpose. It will be interesting actually to see how well the vertical speed and things like that work. I'm just trying to look. I don't remember off the top of my head how it works in this aircraft. It's got distance measuring equipment. Can you set a target altitude in it? I'm not sure that you can. I think you just go for altitude hold. Anyway, we'll see how we get on, and we'll have a play with the autopilot along the way and see if it's going to behave itself, because lots of other aircraft have been affected recently. So flaps to takeoff position. Taxi out. So what autopilot modes do we have? We've got flight director, which won't stay on, look, unless the autopilot's on, it just disappears again. Autopilot, sorry, approach mode, I'm guessing that is. Nav 1, Nav 2, heading mode, nav mode, so that's lateral navigation essentially. Back course mode, altitude hold, VOR lock, and a glide slope. So you can effectively get it to fly. I wonder if AP is the same as autopilot then, because if it's got, whoops, just try not to tip the aircraft over. Should look where I'm going really, shouldn't I? Let's concentrate for a moment so we don't have an accident before we even take off. Okay, full throttle. So watching the airspeed, we will rotate at 80 knots. It's quite heavy. Yeah, I wanted 90 knots really before it was going to come off the ground. So let's have a look from outside. It's very noisy. And gear up. A lot of turbulence. That was quite a strong wind that we took off into. So flaps up. That's affected the amount of stick I'm having to use to hold the nose at the same attitude quite drastically. But you can see we're accelerating and still climbing quite steeply, so it's quite a surprise how well this aircraft handles, to be honest. So we're going to turn around to the left because it's the easier turn to make, and we can look out the window as we turn, look at some of the scenery below. Just do a nice gentle turn. So we've got manifold pressure, which is just off the gauges at the moment, so I'm going to just ease the throttles back a little bit. There we go. So it's happier in the green area. Obviously we were absolutely pegging it on the engines, and the sim has frozen. Oh, it's released again. There we go. So there's the airfield we just took off from. The scenery around here is really nicely done, isn't it? Some lovely mist rolling in, which is going to be entertaining, let's put it that way, because we're heading straight into it. Okay, so using the elevator trim to watch the vertical speed, let's get us somewhere in the ballpark of where we're going. Let's go and spin this. Actually, let's try it. Let's go and turn the autopilot on, see what mode it goes into immediately. So it's on. So that is the AP button then. That is autopilot, not approach. Okay, so we got flight director is on now. It came on with the autopilot, so that's given us the bars on the attitude indicator. Nav 1 has come on, so it's going for that. Although it's not going for the. Okay, it's using Nav 1. That's what it means. It's not in navigation mode. So obviously that's going to mean nothing. So that's quite nice though that you can switch between Nav 1 and Nav 2 if you are doing radio navigation. Let's go for altitude hold. So presumably once you've got altitude hold you could just release it and then use the pitch wheel to climb or descend appropriately. So it's a bit rudimentary but it works. So we're flying at just corrected, I didn't calibrate the altimeter. That's a huge mistake from me there. Thankfully we weren't anywhere too high and weren't having to reference our altitude. So we're about 3,600 feet at the moment. but it's creeping back down to the point at which we turned altitude hold on, which is quite interesting. So let's release altitude hold and then go for re-engage it at 3,500. Yeah, and that will make it correct itself. Okay, so let's have a look on the map and see how we are doing. So to get to our waypoint, we need to really follow the line. So let's see how well it does on GPS navigation. Will it correct itself? So if I go to nav mode, see, it's not going to do it. So that's because this is in VLOC mode. That's interesting. Because I could swear I didn't put it into VLOC mode. So is it going to turn left? No, it isn't. So it's not going to correct itself. So what we'll do is go to heading mode. Wonder if it's got anything to do with this. There we go. So we'll set it to east. So that puts us on the intercept course. If we zoom in on this a little bit, that puts us on that intercept course, which is quite cool. Those hills look a bit big, don't they? Should we have a look on the elevation plot on Little Nav Map and just see how high they actually are? So we need to set this to VFR, put it to say 3,000 feet. Yeah, 3,000 is not going to cut it, is it? Although it will for the first part of our route. We'll be good with that. But once we get further over, we're going to have to do some climbing probably. Unless we follow the valley along here, of course. So if we put some extra waypoints in, you can see it's flattening those hills out for us. The more interesting one is over here maybe, where we might want to do a visual route through the hills to get rid of those peaks. Yeah. So if you imagine following the lower route through the hills, we can take some of the height out of it. Okay, so we're just about to cross over the GPS line in a moment. So let's go and put this back onto nav mode and see how it deals with it. Unfortunately, you can't see if nav mode is lit up because of the way the light is hitting the instrument, which is not ideal. Can we shade the cockpit? Just about. So it is in nav mode. And it's turning. So we had to put it on the intercept course ourselves, but now it's going to hold the route, which is great. So the first airfield we're coming to is Ward. We are going to need to descend back down to 356 feet, which is going to be fun. So let's pull these back out of the way. Skimming the hilltops as we go. And we'll reduce the range on this a bit more. Let's come off that autopilot. So let's just check what the wind is on the ground at Ward. It's 330, 16 knots, gusting 27. So we're going to follow this valley down. I'm just going to turn gently. If I see over the nose, we can push ourselves forward in the cockpit so we can see where we're going. do we get a klaxon in this while we're in the air? If we pull the throttles back too far, should we try it? Yes, we do. So we're coasting downwards, so we're not losing much airspeed. The airfield's going to be down in this valley. So we need to come in from the far end for the wind. The wind is whistling down this valley this direction. So we'll circle overhead and we'll come back in. Did we turn the nav lights on? We haven't got the strobe on. That's something. We'll put the landing lights on as well. Just it's a bit misty today. Make sure we're seen. Something else we haven't done, which we should have done, is the cowl flaps. So you can see they're here. If you noticed earlier, there were flaps here, and it will affect the performance slightly. Okay, so there's the airfield, where we're going to perform our touch and go. Just looking to remove some speed as well as altitude. We can actually achieve that more quickly by modifying the propeller condition, or the RPM I should say, which we've just done. So I've slowed the propellers down. You can see the speed has just fallen off a cliff. Now we can drop the gear. It's worth noting you can drop the gear at very fast speeds in the... There's a safety label somewhere around the cockpit that mentions about it. So we're probably a bit high and a bit fast. Yeah, we're way too high and way too fast. So we're going to circle and try to avoid these hills. Kind of backwards flying, isn't it? Staying to the valley edges, turning within the valley. Let's press F to straighten ourselves up. Let's have a look at this from outside. It's quite horrifying, isn't it, seeing it from outside? The runway. There's a bit of a crosswind going on. Should be fine now. And we're down. Whoa! There's a massive gust hit the side of the aircraft then, nearly tipped us. Okay, so we can increase the propeller speed again, gear up, start winding the flaps out. Holding on to the last stage of flaps just until we get to 100 knots. Go in a straight line as far as we can. Now we have to figure out a way out of this valley without killing ourselves. So we'll carry on along and then turn right. That said, this has got two engines. It can climb like nobody's business. So we could just, as long as we do it in a controlled manner, we won't get into trouble. So we're down to 95 knots. Let's just be careful about this. We're coming up through 2,000 feet. So we need to be mindful of mixture as well once we get any kind of altitude. We can probably circle around and go, is that way? Oh no, we're going almost the right way now. Okay. So, elevator trim, get the nose trimmed, there we go. And manually control it for a little while. We can come off the throttle a little bit, just to stop that manifold pressure from being too high for an extended period, although it doesn't really affect it in a Carenado aircraft. It's not something you typically have to worry too much about. If you get in the black square Caravan, different story. You can wreck the engines really quickly, or wreck the engine really quickly, I should say. It's amazing scenery, isn't it? Okay, so if we engage the autopilot again, will that engage it? No, it won't. That is just an indicator then, that's not a button. It's just telling us the autopilot is engaged. So we're going to turn the heading knob back and go to heading mode just to hold us on this heading in a semi-reliable manner. It's still climbing at the same rate, but we can actually go and play with the trim wheel if we want to change our climb rate and convert it into speed, for example. So generally sort of 700 or 800 feet a minute should be fine for this aircraft. You can see it's holding on to 120 knots and even gently accelerating. So we're on the track, so we go to nav mode, we're still in GPS on the CDI. We can turn the course to the direction we're expecting to be going. Should we have a look on the map? See, this is interesting, look. Oh, of course we draw an extra waypoints, so we're going point to point here instead of the low route. So we are kind of cheating. Let's go for altitude hold. We can see here we are high enough. So we're in the cloud now. The hills are below us. On our way. So typically in cruise, in aircraft like this, you would pull the mixture back to a more sensible level. You would also cut the propeller speed back to about 70 or 80%. And the throttles as well. And it won't affect speed too much. You can actually find you slow the propellers down and you increase in airspeed, because the propeller, once you're at a few thousand feet, won't be able to grab the air anyway, so it ends up kind of like, you know, like a boat propeller will cavitate and not grab the water. You can do the same trick with an aeroplane propeller. If you spin it too fast, it doesn't actually do you any good. So you can see, even with the mixture pulled back, okay, we're at 5,000. Let's see how much we can get away with leaning it out. We need to be careful of temperature as well. So let's go and have a look at those gauges. We've got fuel flow over here, exhaust gas temperature. We've got the oil pressure. Cylinder head temperature, look, is getting a little bit low. So it may be worth going for the carb heat. That's the cabin heat. Where's the carb heat on this thing? Or maybe it didn't have it. Am I dreaming that it had it? Maybe I am. It does have the cowl flaps. which we have closed, which would cause it to heat up. Interesting. I could swear this had carb heat. Maybe it never did. Maybe I'm thinking of a different aircraft. It's amazing scenery around here, isn't it? So let's zoom out on this. Can we change the chapter? Yeah, we've got arc mode, which will tell us how far to go until the next waypoint and the estimated time en route as well, which is obviously much more useful to us than a map view. Let's go and have a look while we're en route. So this goes into a shallow basin down here. 330 knots is the wind, gust 8 knots, sorry, 330 degrees, 8 knots, gusting 15. So it's coming in from this direction, so we probably want runway 36, but I think we'll circle as we descend to get a look at the airfield. The altitude of the airfield is 1400 feet or thereabouts, so we've got 3,500 feet to lose. We won't start descending just yet. We'll descend as we circle. Hopefully we'll come out of this mist in a moment. I guess while we're en route we could remove that altitude and trim a little bit down. Remove the altitude hold. We're just waiting for the aircraft to start descending itself. Maybe it won't. Okay, maybe it won't because of the speed. So if we look in front of ourselves over here, there's the airfield. So we want to come in this side. Maybe we have got time to descend and do it. Let's try it. So throttle's back. Now remember, we can drop the undercarriage in this at speed. I think it's written on the wall down here about it. I'm trying to remember where it is. Yeah, manoeuvring speed, design weight, gear extension speed, 139 knots. So we can just about do it at this height, which will obviously give us a load of drag. And the nice thing about having dropped the undercarriage is we can then cut the throttles to idle. And we can start descending and turning and do a straight in approach, which is nice. So we're going to go for laps 1. The instruments look very real, don't they? They've got the reflections really nice across the glass in front of them. It's well done. Yeah, the wind is gusting quite strongly. We're going to have to be mindful of that. It nearly caught us last time, didn't it? Had a sudden gust just above the runway. Thankfully it's a nice long runway, so we haven't got to panic about the run length along the runway itself. And we're down. Flaps back to takeoff position. Full throttle. Rotate. Gear up. Flaps back up. Okay, so next leg, we turn right, I believe. That's what this is telling us here. Yep, here comes the next leg. So we come back off the throttle. We're going to need to get over these hills, so we're going to be climbing for a while. So we're going out over the top of these. So this is the bit that showed up on the map earlier. So we might hand fly it and go through the valleys. We'll go and reacquaint ourselves in a moment with the route. So just to begin with, let's go and turn the autopilot on, which is going to hold roll and pitch. Essentially, it's doing wing leveler and pitch, which is fine. You can see it doing it here, look. It's holding the pitch we were at, so it's holding 1,000 feet a minute, which is absolutely fine. And we're climbing up through 3,000 feet. So we'll leave it doing that. We're going to spin this round so it makes some sense to us. And let's go and have a look at the route. So, is there a nice way through? We're about to come up to a road. If we follow that road, can we see it? Not easily. Presumably it's that one. Okay, let's follow that road. Autopilot off. So it's going to be the very visual route through the hills. So the road doubles back, then goes, so we head straight for the ridge in front of us, which is here, because you can see the road as it zigzags going up the ridge. Yeah, that'll be that bit there that we can see in the distance. So if we cross over the ridge, then we can follow the valley south, which is obviously just the other side of this ridge. Just slowly trimming the elevator out. We don't need to climb anymore at the moment. So get us back level, or thereabouts. Here comes the ridge, so we're going to remind ourselves where we are. About to cross over the top of the ridge, and then we turn gently south, and we're looking for the point at which that runs out of road as well. I guess it's up there, look. So we follow the natural direction of this ridge, and there's the end point where the road hits the the end of the valley, which we can see here. Then we just cross over and carry on in this general direction, following the valley. So once we get clear of here, we should see the path ahead of us. With a bit of luck. And we've got GPS to help us along the way, so we're laughing really. It's just nice to do a little bit of visual kind of tracking, you know, interpreting maps and matching them against what you can see outside. Okay, just cross the ridge. Bit of turbulence there as we came over the ridge. We're doing 150 knots. Yeah, the Skymaster is pretty quick. I imagine most of the pilots that fly it end up deaf though. It's incredibly loud. Sat between two engines. It's always going to be loud, isn't it? So we follow this natural line down. Let's have a look at the map. Yeah, and down in the bottom of here is Happy Camp. Hopefully. That's going to be down here somewhere, with a bit of luck. Presume. Let's have a look at the winding of this road. Presume it's down in here. So we may end up circling overhead before we descend down into Happy Camp. We'll see how we go. Maybe it's not as close as I think. It may be further out over there. Just looking at some of the features. Yeah, I think it's further out over there. I think. Just looking at the natural valley that goes across. Although there is one here as well. It's difficult to see. No, that's the one we're about to pass. Yeah, which is just here. So it's over here. Okay, we got it. Quite a long way down, isn't it? Shall I scoot around the cockpit and have a look out the windows? Oops, just put my head through the glass by accident. I forgot you could do that in this aircraft, to be honest. It's quite useful sometimes. So we need to start thinking about descending down, because the airfield's down here somewhere. Anybody seen an airfield? Aha, it's right in front of us. There we go. So we need to plan our approach into the airfield. So wind on the ground down here is 330 degrees, 16 gusting 27, so it's still coming in from this direction. So 4 or 22, it isn't going to make a lot of difference. I'd be more inclined to turn around over here and come in for runway 4, which is going to be like following the valley along this edge. So I'd be more inclined, yeah, to descend over this hilltop and circle in. Which is going to make for an exciting approach, I guess. Especially given the wind isn't ideal for either direction. We may have a massive crosswind to deal with. So we've lost about 1,000 feet so far, and we will continue to descend. Just cutting the throttle back as we go. So we'll come back down through this valley, and then if we just scoot sideways, there we go. We'll come back down through here and land. So we're going to do a little bit of aerobatics to turn into this river valley down here in a moment. So we'll stay tight to this side for the moment as we descend it a bit further. And then roll it in. Just drop the gear. We'll also go and reopen those cowl flaps. Getting ready with the flaps as well. So runway is over there. Goes flaps to 50%. Don't want to go too far to the left here because it means I just increase altitude rather than descending in. So it's going to be a bit of a Spitfire final turn, I'm afraid. Hugging the hillside. Whoa, that wind is vicious. Full flaps, using them almost as air brakes more than anything. Let's hope we have enough runway. Just had a gust there and it lifted us back into the air, and we're down. Not quite going to make the exit there, which is a shame. Let's just spin the aircraft round. Flaps back up, and we got down. Quite an eventful approach, wasn't it? We'll find somewhere to park, shall we? Maybe next to the keep finding Mustangs around at the moment. So parking brake on. We can just starve the engines of fuel to bring them to a halt. And then work our way backwards through the various switches. So turn all the lights off. We can then go and I'm just trying to remember what we did in what order. It's funny, isn't it? When you fly too many aeroplanes in a row. That's interesting that we didn't have... Oh, that was the Autopilot master switch then that I was looking for. I used on the yoke. Oh, sorry, on the keyboard. That was the Autopilot master switch down there. We find it afterwards. That's how typical is that. I'm just looking around to see what I've missed around the cockpit. I don't think I missed too much. So alternators can come off. Pitot heat was off. We didn't really need it. It was a lovely hot day. I think the lowest temperature we saw en route was 10 degrees. So the magnetos can go off now. The master switch for the avionics is down here, and then we can go for the battery. The doors and everything work on the Carenados. It's got gull wing doors. It's quite cool on this aeroplane. I think the windows work as well. Yeah, they do. So we should be able to, because we can go through the wall, we can pretend and see the aeroplane from outside. It's quite cool, isn't it? So there we go. That was the Carenado Cessna 337. Is it a Cessna? Yeah, 337 Skymaster. With a very unconventional engine arrangement. As usual, if you've not seen it before, as usual with the Carenado aircraft, look at it, it's like a photograph. It really is quite bizarre. Yeah, the closer you look at it, the more impressive it becomes, to be honest. There's a few graphical glitches, but a lot of aeroplanes have that with flight sims, so I wouldn't worry too much. Oh look, the Mustang is sunk into the tarmac here as well. We saw that earlier, didn't we? Okay, I'm going to leave it there. Hopefully you enjoyed that, and I'll see you again soon.